Welcome to Sales Momentum, the podcast designed to fuel your growth and accelerate your success in sales. I'm Howard Wolpoff, your host and guide through the ever-evolving world of sales. Selling isn't just about closing deals. It's about strategy, relationships, and continuous improvement. In each episode, we will bring you expert insights, proven techniques, and real-world experiences from top sales professionals. Whether you're a seasoned closer or just getting started, this podcast will help you sharpen your skills, build momentum, and hit your targets with confidence. Let's dive in and take your sales game to the next level. Welcome to Sales Momentum. I'm Howard Wolpoff, your host, and today we are going to be talking about radio sales and sales in general, but a very interesting guest that we have today who is a general sales manager of a radio cluster in upstate New York, something that's near and dear to my heart, having my own experiences in radio. His name is Tim Dodd. He's a general sales manager of Vox AM FM Digital with stations in upstate New York, and runs through Vermont and even could be heard in Montreal, Canada. So Welcome to our conversation today.
Great. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I'm glad to have you here because we obviously can talk radio very comfortably. And I'm excited to hear about, there's really a lot of things going on within the radio industry because it's been a little while since I've been working in radio, but you're working with 7 different stations, all different types of programming that you have on these stations, and obviously different demos that they hit, and then you and your advertiser are trying to reach. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found your way into that industry?
Sure. Well, I've been in and out of broadcasting for most of my career. My undergrad is from Syracuse University. I have a degree in broadcast journalism from there. Started out as a local news director in Lake Placid, New York, and then was a local news reporter in Plattsburgh, New York, way upstate. Went into some community relations, was the marketing director of a large shopping mall. I've been in and out of the industry, as I said, for a bit. I got back into radio sales, then went to open and run a newsroom in Burlington, Vermont, WKDR radio, which was an award-winning station there. Got out of the business again for a bit, and now I'm back. I just you can get out of radio, or I can take myself out of radio, but I can't seem to take the radio out of me. And so here we are.
I don't think people realize how amazing a medium radio is and how exciting the concept is, but when you focus on the sales part, I don't think people realize is what you are selling is air. You are selling the opportunity for sound to travel with your messages being discussed, whether it's a recording or something live by the host, the DJs. It really is. It's not something physically tangible, and yet they do get results from utilizing this as an advertising medium.
Absolutely. I used to have a conversation with folks who were skeptical of radio, and I would say, okay, I'll tell you what, I can pick up my cell phone right now, and I can ask the local DJ to put me on the air. And the next, 15 people that come by here, as well say on the air, that come by your business, you're going to give $1,000 to. If radio is not effective, you don't have anything to worry about. And of course, that would give them some pause, right? So, okay, well, let's back up and let's think about that for just a second. Radio's immediacy, nothing still beats radio's immediacy. The locality that radio has, what local radio stations mean to their markets. And to their listeners and to the people they serve. It's a very deep and emotional connection. People spend more time with radio than even they realize. And it's still an incredibly popular medium. People talk about, streaming services or satellite radio or, Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever it is. And it's still 75% of us spend at least a couple of hours a day listening to the radio every day. You know, TV can't say that, broadcast TV can't say that, and local newspapers certainly can't say that. You know, through all of the media landscape changes, radio's remained incredibly relevant.
It's amazing. The radio's been around for 100 years at this point. It really was the main medium of entertainment for a few decades before television, and the different programming evolved from radio to TV. But they started with advertising in radio, and it's an evolution to what you see now with the digital aspects of advertising and things here on TV. I'm sitting there paused last night on Paramount Plus, and there's all these QR codes on the frozen screens. So you can get for the ad that's running on the screen while I pause the show for some reason. And it really got all of its roots from radio.
Yeah, and I think that what we are still very much auditory creatures. You know, it's you and I were talking before about an episode of a radio WKRP in Cincinnati that we really, really enjoy. And what you remember about those sorts of things are the audio tracks, right? If even television commercials, you remember the jingles. Most of us can probably, I was thinking about this the other day. One of our radio stations programs Christmas music this time of year, top to bottom, which is very unusual for a station to break format, go from a hot AC station to entirely Christmas music. And even though we only sing Christmas carols maybe a few times a year, because we've done it all of our lives, even for a short period of time during the year, we remember them. And that is something that is unique to that medium. I would challenge someone to remember a Facebook post that they saw yesterday. But they can remember a 75-year-old Christmas carol that they sang, when they were 6. And it's just it's that kind of a medium that just sits with you, and that's why it's still so relevant.
Well, it brings up the concept of the earworm and the way the brain works, that you capture these tunes and they get stuck in your head. There's a great Seinfeld episode where George, I think it's the one where he's trying to leave things behind, so he'd have to come back, and it was like he wants to get stuck in their head the way that
right.
It was by Menon was the tune, but he was saying it Costanza stuck in their head. But it's amazing the results that people get from hiring some of these jingle companies, and most of that's done by the radio station. The radio station will book the ad campaign, but then also bring in a jingle company to create these jingles that help make things stand out more for the advertiser in those commercial blocks.
And you're right. A lot of, and we employ those services once or twice a year as well at my group. And it's also true that most radio stations still have very creative people that work for them. And now, state of the art sound systems, recording devices, access to all kinds of music and sound effects and, digital editing. I mean, it really is incredible what can be done even on a very local level. So that while, a jingle might not be, within reach of every single advertiser, but if you push your local radio station to be just a little extra creative for you, they can do some amazing work. And really, really help you stand out, create an ad or a campaign that your customers will enjoy, that people will remember, and that will bring you new business.
It's a different level of entertainment within your listening opportunity, because some of these commercials really they can be fun. I know on the sales side, I had a lot of opportunity to voice over commercials, and some of them were straight voiceover, and some of it was creating characters and sneezing and coughing and making sounds. I brought my kids in, and there's one commercial. My son recorded something was probably 8 years ago at this point, and every once in a while, still, it's so generic for this plumber that if they need just a generic spot, all of a sudden I'm flipping the station, and there it is again. It was about flushing Goldie the goldfish down the toilet, and the flushing of the toilet, and then the kid saying to telling his father that the toilet didn't flush, the goldfish is still there, but they have to bring in the plumber to fix that, and then that could solve the problem. But it's you really can grab people's attention in a different way and stick into their heads to when it's time to make a decision that they need some repair or some purchase. That's what sticks in their mind.
Right? And these days, we talk a lot about like Google gets the credit. And what I mean by that is that someone, because of frequency, because of reach, because of, as you just said, a messaging that's on point, creative, and leaves an impression, people will think of you when they need you, but maybe they don't quite remember your phone number, so they're going to look you up on Google. Google is the new Yellow Pages. There might be, some folks might not remember what Yellow Pages are, but Google is the new Yellow Pages. Incidentally, we talk about the capability and sort of all the bright, shiny objects and whiz bang sound effects and that sort of thing that can be done. But just some really good creative copy is where it all starts. I remember what I'm thinking of, the commercial you mentioned is really, really neat. The old Tom Bodett Motel 6 commercials. Tom Bodett, Motel 6 will leave the light on for you. Just him talking about, I remember one line, every hotel room looks the same with your eyes closed. That here's Motel 6 marketing, if you got a comfortable bed and a nice place to sleep and a comfortable room and you can adjust the temperature and a decent shower, what else really do you need? And that's when you get a Motel 6 for $50 a night. So that kind of creative messaging really that's the bedrock of the medium, I think. And so I would say local advertisers for sure, push your folks to do what they do well and write some really good copy for you. And that's really where it starts.
And having those good personalities, not just people at the radio station, but sometimes it's the client themselves. Like Tom Bodett was the owner of the company, and he just had a voice and a personality that really was very soothing and comforting. Mm-hmm. And there are people like that. I know that from my experience with the station here, we had some personalities that really worked well with their spots, and they keep on going. And there's some that think that they're the only voice that can be for their spots, and they keep on going. And since that's an argument you try to make to see what you can do to improve their sales, sometimes that's something you have to smile and nod, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. I would say to clients, if the only reason that you want to voice your own commercials is to hear yourself on the radio, that's probably not the best reason. It's a reason, right? But it's probably not the best reason. If you're passionate about the way you tell your story, though, and that feeling really comes through, then sure. I remember one advertiser we had that used to sort of freeform his ads. It was for a local bakery, and he would just come into the studio and start talking. And it was, the poor sound engineer, it was up to them to kind of edit that into something that made sense. But once that happened, I mean, it was gold. It was, it was great for that bakery owner. And he had some of the best commercials on our air.
Yeah, it's trying to edit some of those things when people are just continually speaking without taking a breath and not having a stop and speaking like that, trying to figure out, because you sit there now, it's computerized, all sound waves. So you can stretch out the sound waves to a certain point. We got to figure out how to make that stop so it sounds clean and not abrupt. Some of those sound editors do not get the credit that they deserve for getting some of these, and not just the special commercial spots, but they do a lot of voiceover stuff at the station that doesn't go as noticed by the listener as it probably should.
No, you're right. And I think that, if I could just send one back to a client this morning, a well-produced ad can make a client feel really, really good, brands a business, really well. As long as you're consistent with it, as long as you don't feel like you have to change it every week. It's not, you don't use radio the same way that people used to use grocery store sales flyers. Like, okay, what do we have on sale this week? Right? It's not the same thing. Radio is about consistency. It is about frequency, and it is about making sure you are top of mind in someone's mind when they need your product or service. Because the first time they hear the ad, the seventh time, the 17th time, they might not need you yet. But when they do, you want to make sure that that messaging has come across so that you're the first person they think of.
Yeah, we can go deep into reach, frequency, and that understanding of that.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
But conceptually, it's having a message enough time so it sticks in someone's mind, but really hitting them at that right time. I had an advertiser. We were doing his renewal. He has a painting business, and we were a sports radio station, so we were focusing on marketing to men. And he's like, okay, I understand my numbers are going up, but anytime I get a call, it's from the woman, it's from the wife making the phone call. And I said, you're absolutely right. And he looked at me so perplexed. I'm like, let me explain this to you. Wife looks around and says, we need to paint the house. And the husband shakes it off. And then a couple of months later, she's now regrouped and she has a plan. And okay, we really need to repaint the house. And he's like, okay, let me think about it. And shakes it off again, really.
Yeah.
She's adamant. Okay, we really need to paint this house. Look at this. Look at this. Okay, let me do some research and I'll get back to you. So now he's listening to his radio station, and all of a sudden, performance painting is how he's been hearing for months on end. They go, here, call this guy, and he gives the number to his wife, who's going to probably be the one supervising the job anyway.
That's right.
And she makes the phone call, and he's sitting there scratching his head like, I made that very visual. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah,
we expanded him to some of the football coverage that we had in addition to what he was doing. And it's really trying to figure out who is your message for and how often do you need to repeat it, because someone might need their house painted in this coming January, but someone may not need it again. They need to do it for a year and a half from now, and you want to be part of that decision whenever they're making it.
Sure. And I think you're right at figuring out exactly who it is you're marketing to, who, is it the direct customer or is it an influencer of that customer? And also I think understanding that you can use the same demographics over and over and over again and kind of get stuck in a little bit of a rut. It's not a bad idea once in a while to try to find a group of people that maybe could be your customers, but aren't yet. One example is I years ago sold the schedule to a farm equipment supply station. They sold tractors, John Deere tractors, to in Upstate New York, a dealer there. And one of the stations I had him on was our jazz station. So smooth jazz. Okay. So farm equipment, smooth jazz. Not something that people would necessarily think would go together, but I sold him into the schedule because he liked the other stations, and it was inexpensive. So why not? We're selling $50,000-$60,000 pieces of machinery here. So he said, and the next time I saw him, I went back, a little later after the schedule, run for a little bit, and calls me into the office. I'm okay. I'm about to get chewed out. And he said, I can't believe that worked. I said, what do you mean? He said, that smooth jazz station you talked me into. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, over the weekend, I got a call from a farmer in Swanton, Vermont. Because we have our market splits two states, upstate New York and Vermont across Lake Champlain. And this particular farmer really likes jazz music. It relaxes him while he's working. So he was on a tractor. He was working the fields, listening to the radio, listening to that smooth jazz station, and heard the ad for Giroux's farm equipment. Called at the end of the day, called up the owner because there was a phone number that was attached to it. The guy comes across. They meet. Comes across the lake. They meet, and it's a $50,000 tractor goes out the door. So, I mean, that's just a a lesson in saying a non-traditional mode of advertising that still hits folks that may be of the right demographic, might be in the right geography, might be in the right income bracket, um, can still really, really work wonders for you.
Yeah, that's why there's a value of testing out different opportunities to see if
That's
something
right.
to work or not. We started 10 years ago or so a one night a week radio show called Helmets and Heels with three of our female broadcasters running their own show talking
Hmm.
about sports. So now it's because we have a lot of women who when you go to the Jaguar or the baseball games here, there are women there in the stands. So it
Yeah,
now evolved into this year, the station actually made it part of their regular lineup on a daily basis. And so
that's cool. Yeah.
that work can work very well and find that right audience that demands more of it. But changing focus a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're a general sales manager. You run a sales team over a number of different stations. How do you deal with, I guess, the evolution of a salesperson? So you bring certain people in who may or may not
Oh,
have
yeah.
experience working in radio, but they have some experience in sales. You have people who have come in who have lots of radio experience. I guess, how do you help develop your staff to do what the stations need them to do?
Wow, that's a big question. And it feels like it always feels like I'm just kind of getting my arms around that, because that really that's an evolution. It's an ongoing process. There isn't a beginning, middle, end. That is the journey, right? That is they say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Well, that is the journey. I first try to I asked that question we were talking about earlier. What are we selling? What is it that we sell? Do we sell commercials? Do we sell ads? Do we sell copy? And I was really happy that none of my team gave any of those answers. Really in radio, we're selling potential. We're selling opportunity. We're selling success for that business owner, whatever that looks like. So I first try to get salespeople to ask lots and lots of questions. I tell my team whether it's a brand new customer or it's a client you've been working with for years, every time you visit them, make sure when you walk out, you know something different about that business that you didn't know when you got out of the car. Continuously learn about what makes that business tick, about what's important to that business and that business owner, that decision maker, and then that way you understand them a little bit better. You understand where their pain points are. You start to understand, and you're able to identify problems that maybe even they don't see. And then, again, kind of probe and ask questions, and then paint a picture of what it would look like for that business owner, decision maker, if you were able to solve the problems that you've been talking about. What does achieving success look like? What does that mean for them in their lives, and in their businesses? When you get them talking about that, it's a very emotional, sometimes it'll be a very data-driven response. What you're trying to get to is a bit of an emotional response, so that then when you present the solution, they already have an emotional attachment to what this is potentially going to do for them. And that really is kind of the nuts and bolts of how I try to teach my team to sell. That's on the technique side, right? Right. On the sort of day-to-day side, I think resilience and grit are the most important characteristics of any salesperson. I've sold several industries, and those two things are absolutely essential. I think people need to fall in love with their process, because if you close 1 out of 5, you're doing really well, right? In our business, if you close 1 out of 5, you're doing really well. So you're gonna hear no a lot, and you're gonna have to work and rework and visit and revisit. Um, it's not a one and done kind of close. So you really have to own, as I say, fall in love with your process, enjoy the grind, enjoy the grit, enjoy the fact that, you were able to see 10, 12, 15 prospects, and have those sorts of things be your milestones, be your success points. Sales is a results-driven business. We absolutely have to close business. If we're not selling, we're not doing our jobs. But in order to keep yourself afloat and keep yourself motivated, making those smaller goals, I think is what, for me anyway, that's what, when I'm on the street, that's what really keeps me going. And so that's what I emote to my team as well.
And it's very important to have those types of focuses going in. Sales is not a very easy job. There's some people that comes easy too, but it's not an easy job at all.
Right.
But how is selling for these radio stations different than the other sales that you've done in your career? You said you were in healthcare, in construction before. So how have those, or maybe have they not differed in the
Sure. So it absolutely is, it absolutely is different for a lot of reasons. And probably the most obvious is that there is no tangible product. In construction, I've got a widget, right? Here's my widget. I'm going to sell you one of these. I'm going to sell you 1,000 of these, whatever it is. And you're going to go build something with them. And we can all look at it and say, look what you built with my widgets. There isn't anything like that in radio. I mean, in healthcare, it was selling either memberships to a concierge medical practice, or it was selling membership into a value-based care organization. Either way, it's a oversimplification, but it's a little bit like joining a gym. Here is this building I go into. I have a doctor. They take care of me. My insurance accepts them, and they're going to coordinate my care. Again, it's a service, but it's a very tangible service, right? As you started out with in radio, it's air.
Yep.
It is hopes. It is absolutely hopes and dreams. So it's a very different sell, and it's why it has to be a very emotional sell and a relationship sell. It's not it can't be simply transaction. At least not at the local level. At the agency level, it gets very transactional. But at the local level, if it's to be successful, it can't be. And then I think the other thing is that in those other sales processes, there is absolutely a beginning, a middle, and an end. You close the deal and you go on to the next. In radio, you might have to close a client 6 times a year in order to keep them on the air, if they're not a consistent advertiser. And you're constantly developing and massaging that relationship, getting to know that client. I have 2 veteran sales reps that are under my charge, who they have clients. They have no idea if those folks are going to be on the following month until 5 days before the month is up. And they have to come in with a new idea or a new package or a new something to continuously sell them. And so I think that's probably the biggest difference in how it's just very much a different approach.
Well, it definitely seems to make for exciting times and exciting days, especially if we're having to adjust on the fly on a regular basis for a consistent client, which is good, keeps people on their toes, and also brings a lot of new kind of creativity to the process, which is always a good thing.
Yeah,
I think there's a whole bunch more we can discuss, but I think that it's wonderful that you have this great opportunity to reach so many people in a geographic space, and make a difference for all these advertisers who are trying to figure out where the next dollar is coming from. And you're a great resource to make sure people know the positives of what they provide. So Tim, I thank you so much for joining us and really sharing the story. I know I loved I can jump into a radio conversation and stay there forever. So it's
got it. I know.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Howard. I really, really appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you all for joining us as well. I think sales is a passion, is a journey, and every journey is different for the individual who is a part of it, and also those who are benefiting from it. So radio really is an amazing place to be a salesperson and to learn and to be creative. So if you have that opportunity, definitely don't look past it. Jump in head first and see where you can learn and accomplish. But
absolutely,
go out, have a great rest of today, and we'll see you next time. That's a wrap for this episode of Sales Momentum. I hope you picked up valuable insights to fuel your sales success. If you're ready to take your sales game even further, visit howardwolpoffswc.com for coaching, resources, and more strategies to help you close more deals and build lasting momentum. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and keep pushing forward. Until next time, keep selling with confidence.